Have you ever felt like you're doing all the mindset work, you're reading the books, you're doing the journaling, but something deep down just isn't shifting? Well, what if the real key isn't about changing your personality, but about understanding the very architecture that's running the whole show? Let's dive in.
And that right there, that one idea, it kind of flips so much of what we're usually told on its head, right? It suggests that our experience of reality, how we feel, what we think, how we act, is just a direct output of a system, an architecture. And if we can get a handle on the map of that system, we can understand ourselves in a completely new way.
And look, let's be super clear. This isn't some new personality test or abstract philosophy. This is a structural model of how humans function. It applies to every single one of us, no matter our background, because it's based on our fundamental physiology, what's actually happening in your body, from your nervous system to your hormones.
All right, so let's peek inside this blueprint. Let's see how our own personal experience is actually built from the ground up.
Okay, so here's the core definition, and you've got to pay attention to those three key areas: within ourselves, between each other, and in our environments. The thing is, these aren't separate concepts. They're three interconnected layers of one single, unified system. So how does this whole thing actually get built? Well, it's through these three layers. Think of them as the fundamental map of your entire system. And these aren't just clever metaphors, they're the actual organizing structures of our experience. First up, we have the baseline within. This is, well, it's your inner world, right? It covers your physiological state, your ability to regulate yourself after you get stressed out, and even how you make sense of things that happen. Basically, it's what governs your inner sense of clarity and steadiness. Okay, so from the inside we move to the baseline between. This is all about our relational world. And it's not just about what we say to each other. It's about the literal physiological exchange that happens between people, the communication patterns, the roles we fall into, and the boundaries that protect us in our relationships. And rounding it all out, we have the baseline around. This is literally the architecture of your environment. We're talking about the rhythms of your daily life, all the demands being placed on your system, and how well your surroundings actually support you. Okay, so we've got the map with its three layers. But what are the rules of the road? What makes it all tick? Well, that's where the 7 governing laws come into play. These are the principles that dictate how this entire structure functions. Now, this part is so important to get. These laws are presented like the laws of physics. They are structural, not moral. And that just removes any sense of judgment or personal failing. Your system is simply doing what it's designed to do, based on these principles. All right, here they are, the 7 laws. And honestly, each one of these could be its own deep dive, from how our internal state shapes what we literally see, to how connection with others regulates our bodies. But for today, we are zeroing in on the one that acts like the keystone for the entire system. Law number 7, the law of integrity. So why all the focus on this last one? What makes it so crucial? Well, it's described as the principle that literally stabilizes the entire system, the one that brings all the other elements into alignment. Let's unpack that for a second. What this law is really saying is that our entire system, our whole architecture, it finds its most stable, most efficient state when what we do on the outside lines up with our deep, internal sense of truth, when what we do matches what we know. And this is the mind-blowing part. We're not talking about integrity in a moral sense, like being a good person. We're talking about a physiological state. When we're out of integrity, it creates this internal friction, a kind of structural stress. But when we're in alignment, the system just settles into a state of ease and stability. Okay, so why does all this matter? What's the end game here? Well, living with this kind of integrity isn't just some nice idea. It's the most direct path to the system's ultimate goal, which is coherence. So what is coherence, exactly? It's basically when all 3 layers of your architecture, the within, the between, and the around, are all humming along in harmony. They're aligned, they're communicating clearly, and they're working together without all that friction. And you can really see the difference, can't you? An aligned, coherent system gives you clarity, steadiness. You see things as they really are. But a fractured system, that's where you get distortion, constant reactivity, and all those compensatory patterns we develop just to get through the day. And I gotta say it again because it's just so important. This is not about a mood. It's not about feeling good. Coherence is a structural condition of your system. It's a measurable, physiological state of optimal function, stability, and capacity.
All right, so how do we actually put this into motion? How does this become practical? Well, just understanding this one law, the law of integrity, gives us a real, tangible way to bring our system back home, back to a state of coherence.
This is what's called the cycle of return, and it's where all this theory gets really practical. First, you use the architecture to reveal the pattern. Maybe you notice you're just chronically exhausted. Then you consciously restore the pattern. You act with integrity. You finally say no to that thing your body has been screaming at you about. And what happens next? The system returns to coherence all on its own. You're not forcing yourself to feel better. You're just creating the conditions for your system to fix itself.
So I want to leave you with this to think about. Based on this whole architecture, what in your life, your inner state, your relationships, your environment, what begins to stabilize and find its own rhythm when your actions truly match your internal truth?